Alright guys, here we are. We have a little branch. We're going to make some stumps. Buying them is too costly. And then you still have to paint them. So, what we have is a little branch with a scroll saw. We're going to take and we're going to cut the thickness of the blade through the branch on a straight cut. Come back in at an angle cut, like someone has chopped down the tree. Now, you want to make sure that you get your angle cut to your straight cut. Notch that little piece of wood out. Cut on both sides a little bit so you can snap it off to represent a stump. Here again, showing you, cut straight, cut at an angle. Depending on how deep you go or how thick your tree is, you might not have to cut on both sides. You can just snap it off. Now you want to take and you want to remove all the bark that you possibly can from each little stump. This here ensures that there is no bugs going to be put on to your layout by making these stumps. And when you take the bark off, it makes sure that step 2 really gets stuck to the tree. You can see here some of it was being stubborn, so I used a pair of tweezers to make sure I get it all off. Now from the same branch, I've been able to make quite a bit of these. You want to try and make sure that all your bottoms are flat and that you trim each end, so then they will stand up. It makes it easier to work with. Here I have a package from one of the kids' toys which has a lot of clear plastic on it. Now I also use them in my scratch built buildings and my kit built buildings for glass for the windows. Here I am taking a pair of scissors, cutting off a piece that I will need. You want to cut them out just about an inch apart, maybe an inch and a half, whatever works best for you. By leaving them on the sheet, you want to cut them out. As you can see here, I have left them on a tab so it makes it easier to cut. Stacking all the plastic onto one piece and trying to cut through makes it very hard. Cutting them individually makes it very easy. As shown here, I have several squares. Doesn't necessarily have to be square, can be rectangle, triangle, whatever size you want. Whatever works best for you. I have also found that some of the plastic has a uprising lip on it, and those are the easiest ones to pick up. And you want to lay them all out. Grab your CA glue or some type of super glue. Put a drop on each piece of plastic. Whoops, pulled the nipple off of the top of the CA bottle. But that's alright. Glue will still come out. One drop per square. Go ahead and, as I've learned, put your cap back on. Go ahead and put your beginning of your stump on your piece of plastic right on the glue dot. Glue it to the plastic. Whoop. Found one that I did not trim all the way. Here, I'll take my saw and trim off the edge just a little bit. Just the unevenness from where the wedge was cut on one, and then I cut through and snapped it off. Try not to cut yourself. Go ahead and glue it to the piece of plastic. Now, once you have them all glued together, take your time, make sure that they are all on the glue. Now you're going to want to wait about 10 minutes for the glue to really set up and cure. Here we are, the glue has cured to the plastic and the peg that will be your stump. Now you want to go ahead and get ready for step 2. You want to take some Carbondo, mix it up, grab yourself a little bit, not very much, just enough to do 2 or 3, maybe even 4 stumps at one time. Just once you add the hardener, the Bondo will start to cure. I really like to use a plastic stick like what I have. There's the cream hardener. The plastic stick that I am using is an old bubble blower stick. Not much really sticks to it, so that's why I use it. See there, just a little tiny bit of hardener. Now I've sped this part up. Here we want to take and just mush it right around the peg that will be your stump. As you go along, you'll see that each one will give you a different look as you drag it out to make roots, to make it look like a stump. See here, I've put it back at regular speed so you can see me mushing it against the piece of wood and dragging it out onto the plastic to represent roots that lead to the stump. As I've said in the past, you definitely want to do this outside because it really does stink. And you want to try and use as much of the Bondo as you can before it starts to set up. I was able to get 4 out of that little chunk of Bondo. Now I will take and get some more Bondo so I can finish the other 3. And here I'm showing you that you can just dab a little bit out. Use the little piece of string to give yourself a tiny little bit of hardener. This amount will go a long ways. Not sure if you can tell, but the color is a very light pink. Instead of being gray as the Bondo starts out, Once you add the hardener, it turns a color, and that color will be lightened when dry. As I finish up these last three, you want to really make sure that you do not get anything on the top of the stump. Paint, glue, Bondo, etc. This way here, the stump will be nice and clear, so when you put it on your layout, you will see the raw stump, and then it will attract your eye to it. Now that it has taken so long to do all 7, they have already started to set up. Now you can take your tweezers or your hobby knife or something in that nature to give yourself some detail into the Bondo. Poke, scratch, chip, ding, however you want to add detail to make it look like rough bark. The bark on a tree stump is a lot more aggressive than the rest of the tree. So it's okay if it looks like a mess. When you paint it, it will show you detail. As we go through all the stumps, you will see that some have set up more than others. The ones that have not quite set up to give detail, set aside. If you should get one that is almost cured, you can take your hobby knife, use the back of the blade to scratch and pick at the Bondo to give you your bark look. Sometimes that is easier if you have a lot to do. Once again, I have sped the speed up so we don't have to sit through a bunch of this video. It does take some time, probably about a half hour to do 7 or maybe 8, all depending on how fast you are. But this here is very good detail. As you may not be able to see very well with my camera, there is a lot of bark looking detail onto the Bondo. Now once you add your paint, it will give you the results you are looking for. Here I have a bunch of colors of paint. We have burnt umber. We have nutmeg. Now we have pewter gray. And last but not least, black. There we go. You can also add green, reds, yellows, whatever other colors you think you might find on a stump in the forest. That part is up to you, but I'm just showing you how I do my stumps. Here we're going to drop a good amount of burnt umber for our base color. As we go through, you want to make sure that all the pink or all the Bondo has been colored. Not necessarily with your first coat, but by your last color. You want to make sure that all the Bondo is colored, as it is a lighter color than any other color that you will probably add. See here, I'm just dabbing it in, making the bristles get into the tiny detail that I added with the tweezers. Trying to get all sides covered. Now here, I have sped the speed up again. You can see here, you just mush it on. No real technique on getting the first base coat down, but you can see why I give such a big piece of plastic to be mounted on, as you will need to hold it down as you paint it. As we move along, you'll see that not all the divots get covered, but they will get covered by the end of the paint job. As shown here, I have put a piece of double-sided sticky tape down. There is my nutmeg. Bleeding most of the paint out onto the napkin. Not really a dry brush technique, but just so it's not goopy globby on your paintbrush. This is just an accent color. Same with all the rest of the colors. It's just an accent. So that way there, you can still see your base coat, but then all the rest of the colors that go along with it will shine in your lighting. For the video purposes, I did take a hair dryer to dry in between coats, so that way there the colors did not bleed together. Now once they're dry, you want to take your black and you want to take a very, very small amount of black to act as shadows, and this will help bring out some of the higher details in the bark. Just take and swirl some bit of paint onto it, brush very, very lightly onto the stump. As you go through, you will see whether or not you need more or less on the stump. Sorry for making you sick. And the detail is not going to show up very well. But as you can see, I have just a little bit of paint on my brush, dabbing off most of it onto the piece of plastic. Go ahead and brush very lightly. This is at real speed. I'm just moving very fast so the brush doesn't have time to put too much of the paint in one spot. Here we are at high speed.